Well, I want to welcome everyone to our second Women in Medicine Zoom. Debbie Zorian, our executive director, sends her regrets. There's a board meeting that we're having tomorrow night that sort of came up quickly, so she's at the office preparing for that. She didn't want to have to miss tonight, but she was running late and really had a lot of things to get done before our meeting tomorrow. So she sends her regrets. I am Elka Lubin, in case anyone doesn't know. I am Debbie's assistant, executive assistant at the HCMA. And I don't know if everybody knows each other here or if you just want to introduce yourselves real quick before we get rolling. I see Dr. Burke is on with us.
I'm new to the group, and my name is Moira Burke. I'm a retired ophthalmologist.
Excellent.
And I'm Lynn Ringenberg, retired pediatrician.
Excellent.
Barbara Bachman, and I am a newly retired gastroenterologist.
Congratulations.
Good.
I'm Rebecca Johnson. I'm a pathologist. I was in active practice for over 30 years in New England, primarily in Western Massachusetts at Berkshire Health Systems. And 9 years ago, I moved to Florida to take the position of CEO with the American Board of Pathology. So I'm in the business of certifying pathologists in the specialty of pathology and our 11 subspecialties. So I've really enjoyed moving to Florida and getting involved with the HCMA.
Oh, we love having you. I see Sheila here on there, Sheila Imani.
Hi, yes, sorry, I'm currently driving, so just wanted to pop in and listen in. But I just want to say hello. I'm one of the residents at USF, and so you know, glad to be here and excited to hear the talk.
Sheila is one of our representatives on our executive council from USF.
Oh, great. And what residency, Sheila? Which specialty?
I'm in psychiatry, and I just finished up the match for child and adolescent psychiatry, so I'll be joining as a fellow for that. Yeah.
Great. Boy, do we need psychiatrists now. Wow. What's your number? No, just kidding.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I see Dr. Ava Crook is here too. I don't know if are you on the phone, Dr. Crook? Oh, there you are.
Sorry, I just walked in, so I was walking around, didn't want to make anybody dizzy with my video. Eva Crook, current, I guess, Vice President of the HCMA, Chair of Government Affairs Committee, Private Practice OBGYN. And thank you, we appreciate your coming tonight.
Yes, and Dr. Ellis, I see you're on also. Oh, she's on mute though. Well, we'll have to say hello to her after. I don't know if everyone knows Dr. Ringenberg. Dr. Ringenberg has been an HCMA member since 2011, I believe. She is the Emeritus Professor of Pediatrics at USF, a board member of Physicians for Social Responsibility for Florida, which we're going to learn about tonight, past president of the National PSR, and a retired U.S. Army colonel. Dr. Ringenberg also served as our guest editor for one of our bulletin issues, in which she collected articles that referenced the climate change and the environment. So that was a very special issue and very near and dear to my heart anyway. And now it's off to Dr. Ringenberg.
Well, thanks, Elke. I would like to, this is a Zoom social gathering happy hour, so I would like to toast everybody that attended today. I don't know if you have your glasses of preferred beverage, but that's important. So let me just get my slides up, make sure they work. I did test them a minute ago, so let's see what happens here. And I will try and kind of move through this fairly quickly because I know people would like to talk and I want to be available for questions. So can folks see the slides okay?
Yes.
Okay. And this basically, I just, you know, I could talk for hours on this. So, you know, shut me up at some time, Elke. I've been working with the medical students at USF, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But this is some of the slides that I showed to them recently that Dr. Trey and I, and I'm hoping Deb joins us tonight, that we have introduced into the Doctoring 4 class. But we are the first generation to feel the impacts of climate change, and we are the last, sadly, the last generation that can do anything about it. That was from a former UN Secretary General. And I don't know, I would suspect that most of you are familiar with David Attenborough, but a recent quote from him is, "If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon." This is a scientist, he's 96 now, I think, or 97. And so he has witnessed almost 100 years of transformation, because that's pretty much what it's been with climate change. And I would urge any of you, and I don't know if this will show up on, since I'm showing the screen, but he just came out with a book called A Life on Our Planet, My Witness Statement and a Vision for the Future. And I would strongly urge you to pick that up and read it. He's a scientist talking in a personal narrative about what's happening with our planet, and it's disturbing, but there are also some positive things. This is science. Science is great, isn't it? These are 5 independent laboratories across the world that since 1880 have been monitoring the temperatures. And you can see there's some variation up and down, but basically all of the centers, the data is the same, that our climate is warming. There's variations for summer and winter, of course, but and it's continuing to warm. But this is the beauty of science, I think. And you know, there's most 98% of the world's scientists that are involved with this research say that this is happening now. It's been happening for many years, largely ignored by the medical community, sadly to say, but that it is real, and that we need to take it serious, and we don't have a lot of time. NASA has been tracking global surface temperatures since 1950, and you can see from the slide on the left that they had projected that by 2020, you know, we'd probably get to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2040. But that's speeded up now, and now they're saying by 2030. So that's 10 years, less than 10 years now from today. And the 1.5 degrees Celsius is kind of the number that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, that has all of these brilliant scientists from around the world doing this data, they say that's really the number that we need to stick with to hopefully be able to sustain our planet and mitigate a lot of the things that are going on, mitigate and then adapt. This other slide on the right, NOAA has been taking ice cores going back 800,000 years. And if you look at the line there, 300 carbon dioxide, it's never gone above that for over 800,000. It's kind of, you know, it's really hard for me to even sometimes wrap my brain around some of this, because, you know, 800,000 years, we've never gone over 300 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. And the slides are kind of, let me see if I can move that box a little bit. Okay, good. So this is now, 0 is basically 1950. This is today. And you can see what we've done in a very, very short time is on 12/3, when I gave this lecture to the medical students, we were at 413.54 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. I checked this morning and it's at 414, so 414.81 parts per billion, parts per million, I'm sorry. So it continues to go up. And the statement here, this research done in Science in 2016, I mean, the Earth is the warmest it's been in over 100,000 years, and we're just going to continue to warm and warm and warm. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not moving my, I'm stuck. Let's see. So let me just see if okay. And you know, this is just facts. I mean, this is the science. It's primarily us that are doing this. It's you and me. It's us. It's the humans on the planet. And it's mainly these things up here, the pictures. It's extraction of oil and natural gas. It's fracking. I'll talk more about that. They want to frack in Florida. It's burning fossil fuels, coal-fired power plants. We have one here in Tampa Bay, TECO. We love our cars. We love our gas cars. We love our diesel cars. We love our fossil fuel cars. Deforestation. We are taking down, killing 15 billion with a B trees a year, and we're not replacing them. The Amazon, which the lungs of the world, the lungs of our planet, will be reduced by 75% by 2030. That's why this 2030 number keeps coming up, and it comes up in a lot of the science literature and a lot of the medical literature. 2030, that's not very long. And then of course we have large cattle operations and methane from the cattle. So that's another thing that we need to work on as far as adapting to the methane gas that cattle produce. And you know, it's happening now. It's been happening now for a long time. We've largely ignored it. Lancet really sent up a red flag back in 2009 and perhaps before that, but saying this is the climate change, and now we're calling it really a climate crisis, but back then it was a climate change, is the most significant and serious health threat in the 21st century, and it was just largely ignored. And since Lancet and other journals now, and the Lancet and JAMA and New England Journal, a lot of medical journals now are talking about what the health harms are from the climate crisis. And Tampa Bay is especially vulnerable. I mean, you know, depending on where you are, but certainly sea level rise, storm surge, flooding, all the things that we'll kind of discuss here in just a minute. But Tampa Bay in the country, we are kind of the target spot in the United States for a lot of what's happening with the climate crisis. And you know, like everything, I guess, it's minority populations, it's children, it's disadvantaged communities, it's that are burdened with most of what's happening with the climate crisis. And children are gonna, 88% of the disease burden occurs in kids less than 5 years old, according to the World Health Organization. Think about that, 88% of children in the world, in the globe. And that includes, of course, children in the United States. And I just put this busy slide up just for one reason, and that's to remind me just to say, it's all interconnected. Everything that's happening with the climate crisis affects human health in a negative way. There's not a positive thing coming out of any of this. You look at the climate drivers on the left, you look at the climate hazards, the changing temperatures, the changing participation, the changing weather patterns, and you move across this, and I'm going to show it in a different format, which is a little easier to read, but we'll see earlier springs, we're seeing more flooding, more droughts, more wildfires. Look at California, we're seeing increased intensity of our storms. Elevated air temperatures, longer growing seasons. That's especially important for our food, excuse me, and allergies, earlier springs, allergies. And then it just kind of moves over to the health outcomes. And every one of those health outcomes have been happening in Florida for quite a while, and they're only getting worse. Heat, cardiovascular problems, toxic air pollution, especially from our coal-fired power plants and methane plants, allergies, water-related and vector-borne diseases, food-related infections and food insecurity, and a lot of stress-related disorders that's going to be, is probably now going to be significant in our communities. CDC has put it in a format that I like better, and you can go to CDC and it moves around and spins and things, but since I put some little pictures around, I didn't want to have it spinning. But these are all the things that are happening now in Tampa Bay and in Florida and in the United States and in the world. And if you start in the center and just look at our rising temperatures and our weather extremes and rising sea level, and then you start over here, let's start with waterborne diseases and go counterclockwise. I mean, we're seeing more waterborne diseases. We're seeing Naegleria in places that Naegleria never was before. Increasing. Each one of these is about a 2-hour talk, so I'm just really dusting over the surface here, but allergies and any of you that have taken care of patients recently, I mean, they come in saying my allergies are worse, having more trouble, I need another medication, one inhaler's not seeming to do it. So we're going to continue to see that. Vector-borne diseases, it's projected to have malaria indigenous in our country by 2050. Dengue is already here. You look at Zika virus, I don't think we know yet with COVID, the influence that the climate may have on that. Except we do have a lot of science on people that are exposed to toxic pollution, especially minority populations, our Black communities, our underserved communities, have more COVID disease because they also have more pulmonary, cardiovascular, and other diseases. Air pollution, I mentioned a little bit. Tampa, downtown Tampa is a heat island, and it's had an F from the American Lung Association for years on the air quality in Tampa, downtown Tampa. I think they increased it to a D this past cycle, just to maybe make somebody feel better. There's all these buildings, there's all that cement, there's not much green space, and there are all those cars because we love our cars in Tampa Bay. And then, you move on to severe weather, you look at direct injuries, deaths, drownings, severe weather, heat stress, heat stroke, increase in cardiovascular and pulmonary issues. Heat kills more people in the US per year than any other weather-related event, especially, again, minority populations, people with chronic disorders, the elderly, young, the infants, folks that don't thermoregulate as well. You look at water and food supplies, malnutrition, diarrhea, algae bloom, we all know about that in Florida. Hunger. I have a whole talk on food insecurity and crops, and they're not going to be as nutritious. They're not going to have as much protein. The minerals, zinc, etc., are going to be lower in our foods. So, and that's globally. Corn, rice, soy, foods that the world largely depends on. And there's a new word now even for mental health issues from the climate crisis, and it's called eco-anxiety. We'll see some studies have projected a 40% uptick in new mental health problems as our climate continues to change. And all of these things on this graph will worsen. And I think that, key for Tampa Bay, all of our communities is trying to keep our community sustainable and cohesive. And yet, as our climate changes, and especially as the climate warms, we're going to see more increase in crime. We're going to see more social instability, more drug use, more alcohol use, domestic violence, all the things that come with that. So I think it'll be a real it is and will continue to be a real challenge for our communities to make sure that folks receive the education about all this, and that we figure out how to make our communities more cohesive and sustainable, especially in these trying times. And environmental refugees, I mean, we're already seeing that a little bit in the US, but not as much as other countries. There's a fair amount of science on the war in Syria. Is our first climate crisis. They had a huge drought. People couldn't eat. All the crops were destroyed. And they moved to the cities, and then you have civil unrest, you have civil conflict, and that goes into military conflict. And there are concerns about nuclear issues as well, something that PSR works a lot on. So, you know, you'll find people moving up from the Miami area because there's going to be a lot of flooding down there with sea level rise and with continued storms. So we will see some local population migration. And this is just one slide. I'm just going to for Tampa Bay, you know, 50% of our population in Tampa Bay live at 10 feet or less of sea level. So really right on, you know, on the sea. And storm surge is a biggie here. It's going to be because of the way the bay is structured and the openness of it, and the shallowness and different things that I can't really even explain, but those smarter than me can, is it pushes the water up, and storm surge at 10 foot, this green area is where the water is going to end up, and a storm surge of 10 foot or greater, you can see it's going to cover most of Tampa here in the city, downtown, Tampa general, certainly. This is, I put St. Pete there, all children's, because I gave this talk to them, excuse me, to them not too long ago. So a real concern. And of course, as the storm intensity, the storms will become more intense. There's no doubt about that. They already have. And so we'll be seeing more storm surge. So Physicians for Social Responsibility has been around for a long time. And some of you may have been part of it back in the 60s. Its work then was primarily nuclear weapons and nuclear testing of weapons. At that point in our history, our nuclear history, we were doing a lot of atmospheric testing of nuclear weapons. And PSR's work at the time brought that to the attention of world leaders, and they stopped doing that. And in 1985, PSR, with our sister organization in Europe, IPPNW, which is the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War, won the Nobel Peace Prize. And then we shared it again in 2017 with an international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, which is a group of really younger people. And there were like 400 nonprofits in the world that shared that Nobel Peace Prize with ICANN for our continued nuclear weapons work. We have health professionals in 14 states. We primarily work on policy, advocacy, and education for things that we feel are an existential threat to mankind, and it's primarily climate change and war, nuclear war. We also do some things around environmental degradation. Our Florida work, we started the chapter in 2008, and it was just Tampa Bay at that time. It was called Tampa Bay PSR, and then we changed it to PSR Florida in 2012 because we realized we weren't really getting anywhere in Tampa Bay. We seemed to, Don Melman at the time, Don is a retired neurosurgeon, and we'd go out and give talks and try and get people motivated, and we just weren't having much success, and yet we were hearing about problems in other parts of Florida. So we opened up PSR to the state of Florida. And the things that we're working on now primarily are getting the city of Tampa to 100% renewable energy by 2035. And right now they're looking at a resolution of 2045, and it's just too long There's a group of us working on this, and any of these things, if anyone would like to join and just work on any of these with me and others, just send me an email. If you know the mayor, if you know Mayor Castor, put a bug in her ear. 2030, it's 10 years. It's robust, but we need to at least start aiming for that. The Biden administration's coming in with their goal of renewable energy by 2035. But if we start with 2030, we could maybe make 2035. We're trying to get climate crisis and health material into the medical school curriculum, and Dr. Trey has been working with me on that. We have it now in a Doctoring 4 class that we gave a lecture in December for a couple hours, and we're doing another one in the spring. And we hope to eventually get that actually seeded into the curriculum. But that's kind of a challenge. We also have greening physicians' offices. If any of you are, of course, I don't know if anyone's practicing here on this call anymore, but we're doing something called My Green Doctor. And we've been doing that all over Florida. It started with the Florida FMA and Dr. Todd Sack, who's on the Florida board. We did a lot of this education on this last year because we had a grant in Pinellas County. But I would encourage you to share that with any of your colleagues. It gives great ways to green your office, protect your patients, educate your patients, and also save money. One office saved enough money that they bought a Prius for the office car, which was kind of cool. We're also working on banning fracking in Florida. If you can believe, they want to frack, which is extraction of natural gas, hydraulic fracturing. And that's a whole nother hour lecture, but suffice to say, Florida has the most productive, healthiest aquifer in the entire world, the Floridan Aquifer. It runs from the Panhandle to Miami, and it's drinking water to 20 million Floridians. I mean, it's like, why would one want to frack and destroy that aquifer? So that's something we worked very hard on for the past 4 or 5 years. PSR has been one of the leaders in that. We have a compendium that we've put together. I think it's the 5th or 6th that just came out with a group of doctors in New York, and that has it's all health. All we really talk about is health. We're the health voice. So if another organization, we work a lot with Sierra Club, we work a lot with Food and Water Watch and other nonprofits, but they don't have doctors usually. So we are the health voice. And there's going to be a bill in Congress in Tallahassee this year on fracking again in Florida. So we'll be fighting that again. We just started working with the Sierra Club in Belle Glade. They're burning sugar cane as part of the process of what they do with sugar cane. I'm blocking on the word, but anyway. And unfortunately, the sugar cane it's got toxic chemicals in it, and all of it blows up to the Belle Glade area, and it affects the health of the folks in Belle Glade. And there's a whole lot of other issues with that, but so we're working on that. We've also been working about lead in the school drinking water, get out the lead program. Senator Cruz from Tampa has been a key leader on that. It's amazing how much lead there is in the old drinking fountains and other things in our schools, especially our older schools and our schools in the underserved areas. But there is no safe lead level. There is no safe lead level. And especially, young children being exposed to lead. I don't have to tell you guys what that does to the nervous system and the brain. We've also worked with medical students across Florida, putting an anti-racism resolution to the FMA, which has been, it was approved by the HCMA, and I thank Elke for that. I think you helped us push that through, Elke, and a few other medical associations, and Dr. Trey's been working on that with me. And I don't believe the FMA has approved it yet because they've kind of been on hold as far as their meetings. Back from the brink is some of the, or I should say brink, it does, I guess, back from the brink is something that I'm working on nuclear weapons. And I'm not going to discuss that further at this time. And then we just educate our communities on health risks of climate crisis. So we're kind of doing all of that. And there's not a large number of us, so we certainly welcome anybody to help us with that. I don't know why this isn't, there it goes. So, you know, we can, and we can all do something. I mean, and I know many of you probably are. I need to get my little faces out of here so I can see this. But we can all do something. So some things don't have a lot of impact, but you can put LED light bulbs in your house. That's going to help. It's going to save you money, and that's going to help. You know, we can, I don't think we're going to do this, but hang out your clothes, recycle, wash in cold water. All of these things help. And if we all globally in the world do some of these things, but even in the US where we tend to be a tad more spoiled, I guess, if we eat more of a plant-based diet, we go to an electric car when we can, try not to fly so much. Zoom has saved a lot of atmospheric CO2 has been saved. I mean, you know, it's not because we're not flying as much of these meetings, we're not driving. And so that has been one plus from all this. Have fewer kids, live car free if you can, hard to do in Tampa Bay. But you know, the bottom line really is that it needs to be urgent and transformational. So, you know, we need to do all of these things, and we need to do them quickly. So the time for really talking and discussing is done. Now we need action, and I think we can do some of them fairly quickly. This actually could be done, number 2, pretty quick. We get off, we start turning down the fires there and the coal plants and the natural gas plants, because natural gas is more toxic to the environment than CO2 over a short period of time. And that's what we have, a short period of time, 10 years. With incentives, shifting to more electric vehicles, eating more plants, reducing red meat, reducing waste. So there's a lot we can do. And I think, fortunately for the climate and for the future and for our kids and our grandkids, we have an administration now that is going to get us going in the right direction. I think we'll get back in the Paris Agreement. Obviously, this needs to be a global reach. It can't be, you know, we all need to get involved with this. And whether or not our children and grandchildren have a good future really depends on what we do next and how quickly we do it. We only have one of these, and she's beautiful, but we have wasted her tremendously. So it's time to get back and see how we can make the planet more sustainable. So with that, if you want information, you know, I've got tons of stuff, tons of data, tons of science articles, et cetera, et cetera. If there's anything you'd like more information on, if you'd like to join us with any of this, you know, email me or give me a call. But I think we really need to, oops, let's see. Oops. Trying to get, I don't know, it's talking now. Anyway, I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see if I can do that without, all right, good.
Did it.
Too many. So anyway, that's kind of what I spend my life doing. Well, I've been doing it for 20 years, I suppose. I got into PSR because in my private practice, I noticed, man, you know, my kids were getting sicker and sicker. I would rarely have a well child clinic that had a well child. You know, they had developmental issues, they had emotional issues, I saw more autism, I saw more pulmonary issues, I saw younger and younger kids with asthma, babies. I mean, and so I said, wow, something's doing this. This isn't genetics, you know, this isn't just genetics. There's something else is going on. And that's when I got into PSR and have been doing this really for the last 20 years. So that's my story. Sticking to it. Join me. Love to have you guys. Do you want
So
to?
is PSR Florida primarily Tampa Bay based, or are there other locations in Florida now participating?
Thankfully, other locations. We've got a group of doctors. It's not just doctors. I mean, it's mainly health professionals, but it's doctors, nurses, health professionals, and then anybody else who's interested in what we're doing. So we have a group of docs in Tallahassee, and so that's good because they can hop over to the Capitol quick and, you know, get active. We have doctors in Jacksonville. We have a group in Miami. And then we have a group over on Palm Beach area. And then Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has probably the biggest group because that's kind of where we started. But it's gotten, you know, and now there are lots of groups doing climate work, but there aren't many that have a health voice. So we still offer that health piece, even though we're not quite as active as we used to be as far as having monthly meetings and doing those kinds of things, because we found it just pretty much too overwhelming for a few of us. So yeah, but we're pretty much all over the state, and we do get asked. I mean, I've been down Sarasota a few times to talk, and different places in the country, Orlando. I'll be doing a podcast over there pretty soon, and various things. So we just try and just give that health voice. Anything, other questions or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I thank you very much. I really enjoyed this. I just have a couple comments and then a few questions. So I live on Davis Islands, and I found it really interesting about Tampa air quality that you never see you don't see in the news what the air quality is in Tampa. I get up in the morning and I like to walk or run in the morning, and when I go out, the air quality is horrible.
Terrible.
And much of this comes from Mosaic,
Yeah.
close by. And I don't know, it's their potassium or what it is, but the air quality is just horrendous.
Well, let me just say quickly, you're right on both. Mosaic, the phosphate, and we've been working some with the Center for Biological Diversity. They're suing. You know, it's you know, it's hard for nonprofits because you don't have a lot of money, and these guys have a lot of money. But we've worked with them on the and the gypsum stacks, but also TECO. TECO coal-fired power plants. Hundreds of people are sickened by the toxic pollution from TECO. And I have nothing against TECO, a coal-fired power plant. I understand that they're going to be closing one down here in the next, I think it's a year or so, and then another one in 2025 or so, 6. And that's good, but it can't be replaced with methane. You know, they're going to tell you that natural gas is clean. You see the ads on TV, clean, use clean natural. Natural gas is not clean. Natural gas, like I said, over a 10-year period is more toxic to the environment than coal. And it's a fossil fuel, you know, and it's not clean. So they have to go to solar or wind or water, or you know, they have to go to something that's sustainable, that's not going to pollute the air we breathe. So you're right. That's what's happening.
So has PSR been able to get the FMA behind anti-fracking, you know, doing some lobbying for anti-fracking legislation?
We did a couple years ago. You know, the FMA, it kind of depends on who's in leadership at the time. They're not real green focused. I'm trying to be nice. But yes, they have helped us, and they do have a statement on fracking. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you exactly what it says, but probably the American Academy of Pediatrics has been kind of most helpful on the fracking. But yeah.
And the other thing I can't help but think, you know, there are certainly some generational not differences, but a different sense of urgency among generations. You know, people my age, they're like, well, I'm going to be dead in 20 years and it's not going to be my problem, but
Right.
it's too bad that we're leaving this behind to our children and our grandchildren. But I can't help but think that, you know, medical students could really be energized behind these issues, you know, the Greta Thunbergs of the world. And I think, you know, medical students are far more environmentally conscious. And I think, you know, that's a group to really energize and to target with these issues.
Well, and you're right, and we do, we try to, and I think that there are some groups in the country, some medical student groups that are really, really active, and we've tried to link up. We have, I think it's 9 medical schools in Florida, and we're trying to link all of these students into some of the work that we're doing with the Doctoring 4 course here at USF. And we recently had, we had her in, oh, I'm blocking on her name now, Karen Solomon. She's a physician, and I don't know if you know her. She's from Harvard, and she's the deputy editor of the New England Journal of Medicine. And she and I connected some months back trying to work on this burning, the sugarcane burning down in South Florida, and that's how we got connected. And anyway, she's published a lot in the New England Journal on the climate crisis and the practice of medicine and what doctors need to do and know, et cetera, et cetera. So we had her, she zoomed in with the medical students. We had about 120 students on the call. And she zoomed in and gave a lecture when I gave this little talk to introduce her. And then we're doing it again in March for all the medical schools students in Florida that want to attend a Zoom call. We're targeting 3rd and 4th year medical students because the ACGME this coming year, I believe, is going to have the climate crisis and health curriculum as part of what residents need to know, especially in the primary care specialty. So I think by introducing it now at our medical schools, our students will be a little smarter when they get into their residencies because they've already been introduced to some of this. So Karen's gonna talk, and I know she'd love if you guys would like to have her come and talk to us. I know she'd zoom in, Elke, and talk about the practice because she's written some really outstanding articles about what we need to be thinking about when we're in the ER and we're in our asthma clinics and we're in our whatevers and just general practice. And they had a big symposium at Harvard about this, and we had wanted to do the same thing here. And then of course the virus came and everything kind of got put on hold. But if that's something that you think the group would be interested in, I know Karen would love to talk.
I just saw something recently about that the CO2 emissions during the pandemic, while decreased, weren't as significant as everyone had hoped. So, you know, that's a little disturbing. But I also see things that, oh, science will solve this problem. You know, there will be bacteria that will be CO2 gobbling bacteria. And they will solve the problem. Any thoughts on how science will solve this problem rather than changing human behavior?
Well, you know, I think, you know, we all hope, you know, we're such a creative, innovative, bright group of people in the world. So I think a lot of things, yes, they'll be able to mitigate some of these things or figure out a way to adapt, build higher seawalls, et cetera, et cetera. But I really think it still takes all of us working together to the little things too. People say, well, what, you know, so I got an electric car. Well, it does make a difference if we have a lot of electric cars, because then we get the fossil fuels off the road. We got to keep fossil fuels in the ground. And so that's why we need to go. It's the only way we can be sustainable. So I think that we have to, you know, my hope is that they will, but I can tell you from reading some of David Attenborough and other scientific things, there's a lot of concern out there that we're not going to make it. That we have, especially those that are my age, that we probably lived through some of the best time in our country back in the 40s, 50s, even, you know, yes, there were some wars and things like that, but as far as the climate goes, some of the best times. A child born today will probably spend his entire life dealing with climate issues and health. And when I had a meeting, a Zoom meeting with Mayor Castor last week, and trying to convince her that 2030 is a better date, and the city council will be voting on that. And maybe they did today. I can't keep it all straight, but they're going to vote on a resolution that we change to renewable, that we get to renewable energy, 100% renewable energy by 2030. If you have a goal, if you can't quite make it by 2030, at least it's 2032 or 2034 or 5. But if you say, 2045, then people are going to say, 2045, we'll start working on it in 2040. We gotta be more serious about this. And I forgot what you asked, where I was going, but I think it's, I think we'll have a lot of creative, innovative things that are going to help. But I'm not sure anything will take it back. It won't be the same ever. And 96% of the mammals on the planet are you and me and the animals we raise to eat. 96% of the mammals. And you got the other issue of population. We're now at almost 8 billion. I think I saw a projection of 9 billion with a B by 2030. All those people need to be, it's all interconnected. So all those people need to be fed and clothed. They all want what we want. They want clean water and clean air, and they want a nice community to live with their kids, and they want green space and safety. They want to feel safe. None of that's going to happen. I'm concerned none of that's really going to happen. We're just going to have to adapt to what the climate throws at us. We're living through a time that no one on the planet has ever experienced before. So, I would like to hope. I stay hopeful. I've been, my friends say I'm too positive. I should, get real, Ringenberg. I try and stay positive about things, but I do think that with our climate crisis, if we don't really start doing some transformational work in the country and the world, it's going to be not a good place to live. And like David Attenborough, he'll say, well, humans might not be here. The human species may disappear. We've had, 5 or 6 extinctions? I think 5. And we may be the 6th, I forget. I think we've had 5 extinctions due to various things, one being heat, millions and millions and millions of years back. So humans might not survive, but the planet will. The planet will survive, and it will reshape, and it'll be new cellular growth. And so, but we'd sort of like to know that our kids and our grandkids and their kids that come after them have a nice place to live like we've had, a sustainable planet. So I think it's, and the medical society, medical physicians, I think, have always kind of led. We should be at the tip of the spear leading this, because it's health. And if everyone in the community is coming down and sick from Zika virus and another pandemic and all sorts of waterborne diseases and diarrhea and heart disease, they're not going to be productive workers, right? You just can't work when you're sick, and then your economy goes to pot. And so, we really ought to be at the tip of the spear leading this. And I think physicians did that back in the 60s, 50s and 60s with nuclear weapons. They were the ones, the physicians, that led that whole charge. And it was pediatricians initially that found, when they were doing the well kid checkups back then, that the kids' teeth were all mottled looking. And so when they'd lose their teeth, they would send them for analysis, and they found out their baby teeth had strontium-90 in it. Well, the only way you can get strontium-90, it doesn't exist in the world naturally, is by fission, by a nuclear explosion. And that's when they discovered they were doing nuclear explosions in the atmosphere, and of course downwind. You know, I grew up in Nebraska. I know we had a lot of downwind back then and in the 40s and 50s. And I've always thought that maybe some of my cancer issues I've had over the years are related. I don't know. But so anyway, but physicians led that they were the tip of the spear that led that whole thing back then, you know, that had Gorbachev and leaders talking and Reagan and almost abolished nuclear weapons. They were close to doing it, but not quite. And so we're trying to do that again. And there are some positive things on the horizon if we can just get the leadership in the countries that have nuclear weapons, like the US, to sign on to the treaty, the prohibition of nuclear weapons. So, but yeah, I think young people get it. I mean, I think that Greta and you know, that age people, I guess she's a teenager, 18, 19. But I think those kids really get it. But you know, they need big government to help. I mean, they can just do so much. And I, you know, the other thing about health, I get frustrated, and you guys, what time is it? I'm just yakking away here, see? Is, you know, a lot of places when you're in a group meeting, like I've been to a couple city council meetings a while back, when I tried to bring up something about health, nobody really wanted to listen about health. And one of the city council, well, what's a few mosquito bites? Well, you know, if half of your workers are homesick with malaria, I said, you know, it's kind of significant. And I said, we're gonna see a lot more vector-borne and waterborne diseases, and you know, health matters. They just often, there's not a health voice at the table in a lot of governmental, especially settings, you know, working on sea level rise. Well, human health is affected by sea level rise. Anyway, I could go on for hours, believe me. So thank you for being so patient. Does anybody else, anything else?
Well, thank you very much for taking the time and teaching us about PSR and enlightening us. Does anyone have any ideas about future talks? I know I have Karen Solomon in my phone here. Hopefully we can figure out a way to get her to visit with us.
I'll send you her her latest article out of New England Journal. You know, and the fact that she's deputy editor, it kind of helps us if we want to publish something. You know, you got a little connection. I'm trying to get the students to think about that. And
excellent.
Well, thank you, Lynn. It's great that you are optimistic about the future. I really like that, and I promise you I'm going to psrflorida.org and see what I can do to support the work that you all are doing. And I hope those of you who are on the call tonight may consider doing the same. So psrflorida.org.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
I mean, that was, I think, a lot of things that we know, but you know, again, a call to action that as physicians, we do have social and public responsibility to get involved in these issues.
And if you have any connections with
Thank
anyone
you.
in city council or the mayor or Senator Cruz, I mean, any of those, you know, could sit down and go have a glass of wine with her and let's talk about the lead in the schools here, you know, up.
Okay, thank you. Lynn.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's my pleasure, thanks.
Thank
We
you for
didn't
your
get to-
enthusiasm.
We didn't get to toast as much this time though. So maybe we should have a toast at the end.
Thank
To
you.
everyone's good health and everybody gets their vaccines and stays safe.
Absolutely.